Just jump into it. Hey, how you doing? You just went live.
Yeah, I know. Hey, everybody, this is episode 5 of Think Dog. We just went live. Um, Sorry for the technical difficulties at first. I got mixed up with what to do and how to do it. But we're live now, and hopefully you guys can find us because I did have to start a new one, which means they'll probably have to be linked to this one. Is that correct, Josh?
Yeah, Jeremy, if you had to start a new one, grab the link of this one and post it up on your Facebook page, and then
Okay.
I'll share it from there so we can. Or no, actually, post it up on your Facebook page and post it in the comments of the
Okay.
original,
Yeah.
and then I'll get it from there and share it over on my end.
All right. Yeah. That's Sorry about that. Didn't expect that to happen. Here we go.
Um, Sorry, guys, just bear with us for just a second. If any of you are already watching or this is the recording, I'm sure in 5 minutes you can fast forward all this
Right.
until until 2-3 minutes later. Oh, beach ball of death on my end.
You know what? I'm going to also see if I can invite a few people, the people that I know that were going to attend. And,
Oh, where are we now? Okay.
okay.
Are you all shared up on your end?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get
Sure.
rolling.
Okay. That's fine.
Do you have any questions right off that you were thinking about getting into?
Yeah. I've got a couple of questions here.
All right, you go and start, and I'll start with my Facebook end as well.
Okay. Let me just get it up here. Okay. Oops.
Hey, by the way, Jeremy, you see my new truck I got?
Yes, I saw that big old Dodge thing, right?
Yeah, man.
It's a fixer-upper.
Yeah, we got it running, but we had to we had to rebuild the front suspension, and we got to replace a freeze plug, which means taking the whole exhaust system off and putting it back on. But yeah, man, it should be up and running, or I should be driving it in the next week or so.
Awesome. Okay, first question comes from Matt from Milwaukee,
Okay.
and he just did a board and train with me, and one of the problems that he's struggling with is his dog barking, and he says that he lives downstairs in a flat, so he lives on the downstairs portion of an apartment, and
Okay.
his neighbors from upstairs. So Murphy's barking constantly, and I had mentioned to them that because we're doing e-collar work with that dog, so I had mentioned to them that Matt could give his neighbors the remote, and anytime he barked, they could correct him. But the neighbor seems to be apprehensive about it because they think it's inhumane. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. So what I had recommended for Matt was to definitely get the bark collar for him, um, because you know the only inhumane part about this situation would be to allow your dog to constantly bark his head off, and because when they're barking like that, they're in a stressful mind state, and if it can go on for hours, then it really is puts a temperament on or it really just, it's very taxing on the dogs. So a bark collar would just eliminate that, that problem of the barking, and it also would help them relax. So if you have a dog that's constantly barking in the crate, the first thing that I would recommend is to crate the dog at home while you're at home more, and help him through that situation while you're at home. Help him correct himself. So, but then, if you're having trouble when you're leaving, definitely put a bark collar on him, and that problem will be solved pretty quickly.
That's interesting. That's interesting. One of the things you're talking about in terms of dog barking a lot in the crate when they leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is what I think is one of the biggest mistakes people make with their crate training with their dog. They use it only for when they leave the house, and that's the first step of messing it up. Because one of the things I always talk about is, while dogs are domesticated and they're super duper great, and they live in this sort of domesticated lifestyle that we give them, they're still survivalists at heart. And a dog will never ever understand why we leave them, why we separate. And so I think that the idea of a dog getting separation anxiety could be pretty high with any dog. And I think that the more, and I know, Jeremy, you talk about this as well all the time, but the more that you put on a big show about you leaving or coming home, whether it's a lot of affection, a lot of talking to them, it really shoots yourself in the foot, because now you're taking what is an excited, stressed state of mind because you're leaving them and praising them for it. But also, the same thing can happen by putting them in a crate, because now you're bookending that you leaving as, I'm going to go put you in this box that we go contain you in while I go leave. And so now that box doesn't represent safety, it represents danger, because it's separating you separating the dog from the pack.
Mm-hmm.
Which is scary stuff.
Just scary stuff.
Oh, no.
Well, Josh, do you have any questions on your end? Otherwise, I've got another one.
You go ahead. I'm sending an email to somebody who's going to tune in today, and I want to make sure she has the right link.
Okay, cool. All right, so this question comes from Amanda and with Charlie. And the question is, how do you get a dog from stop eating poop? As one of my dogs goes, our other dog is overeating it immediately. I use the e-collar with a boost, and he will yelp and run away, but finish eating it. Every time he goes outside, he sniffs for leftovers before he will go himself. He does not eat his own, though. So, Amanda, if Mr. Charlie is eating poop and he's pretty obsessed with it, you might want to check with your vet to see if there's any kind of deficiency on a nutritious level. I'm not too knowledgeable about why dogs eat poop, but I have heard that it is because there may be something that they're not getting in their diet. Again, I don't know. It may be a couple of other things too. It could be a couple of other things, but if it's pretty obsessive like that, I'd go ahead and go to the vet and see if the vet can tell you anything different. Because I think Charlie, as I remember, is on pretty good food. So, if it checks out in the vet that he is not okay, that he is okay, then do your best to just keep on it, keep on correcting him for it. I know that's a pretty difficult one. Me and Josh were in the dog daycare, and we always had to keep our eye out because there were a select few that would just go after it. Like it was a steak, So, try and stay with it, stay consistent. But if he's that obsessive about it, just make sure to be on the safe side that everything's okay internally and physically. Okay.
Yeah, and also, guys, if you are just now tuning in, sorry, I kind of checked out there because I was going through and doing all the back end work of making sure you guys all had the link. So hopefully you're finding us, and after our tech difficulties, you're back here with us in the show. Remember, over to the right, there's a little box in the bottom right-hand corner where you can type any question you have, and we will do our best to answer it as much as we can. This is our way. I mean, again, both of us, Jeremy and I, being usually pretty busy, and the answer I think we both hate giving whenever you guys call for help is you have to wait a couple months, but it's the nature of the beast, so this is our way of reaching out to you guys and trying to help you as much as we can in the intermittent time before you're able to get into our programs, or if you're just looking for a little bit of guidance, we're here to help you. This is our time given to you guys. But I have a really good one of my clients asked this question, and I think it's a really good one. And Jeremy, I think that you might be able to offer some additional insight because I don't think you and I really talked about this that much. But it's what is the difference between place command and the down command? Both of those seem extremely similar, and they seem like they're the same thing. And to me, this is what I think. So the down command is a little more specific because when you say down, it means you've got to stay in that spot, and you can't move from that down position. You've got to be laying down until I tell you to get up. Place is a little bit different because they have a whole area that they can get up, they can walk around, they can do what they want, they can roll over, they can scratch their butt. Whatever they want to do, they have a little bit more freedom there. Generally, what I say is that with the down, that's kind of more of an obedient thing. That's more of a, I'm checking the mail, or I need to go do something really quick, and my dog needs to say, here, you put him in a down. Like, down, I'm going to run to the store real quick, I'm going to come back out. Place to me is good because it's something you can take anywhere and do anything with you, and I think it's a really good way to build impulse control. Probably every single dog out there that has issues, a lot of that is just lack of impulse control. And place, I think, it allows a dog to do something for a long duration, but also continue to enforce certain rules and boundaries. If a dog holds it down for an hour, 2 hours, by the time they get up, they're not getting up from the down because they're breaking that command necessarily. They just forgot they were in a down, and they were just getting up to stretch their legs. That's the great thing about places. If you do that long duration stuff, it gives them room to kind of get up and walk around a little bit in case they've been there for a long time, but still hold that same obedience command. And it just gives them a little more room in order to kind of really get that solid impulse control. Jeremy?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, man.
That's right, I did. That's right, I hit it on the head.
Shut up. No, yeah, you definitely answered that. As I would have answered that. Yeah, when we teach place command, we don't even, for me, we don't even tell them to sit. We just show them to the place, and they decide usually to sit or down. But just like Josh said, they're free to move as long as they're on that particular space. So when you're downing, it just means down, and the dog is supposed to just stay there stationary in one spot. So, all right, Josh. I think we've got a question from Jim C. I'll go ahead and read it off. It says, I have 2 dogs. The male has become a little more aggressive during feeding, either to the other dog or to me. How can I begin to combat this? I've read behind me and show him I'm alpha. Agreed? Or what would work? Josh, you want to take that, buddy?
Yeah, and I just realized, I don't know, again, in the whole wonderful tech world of however we created this one, I can't see the questions pop up. It kind of looks like I'm a viewer in a way. I mean, I hope everybody's seeing me. But let us know over on the side if you are. But I can't see the questions. So, but remind me. So Jim's having issues with he's aggressive.
I'll read it to you again. It says, I have 2 dogs. The male has become a little more aggressive during feeding, either to the dog or to me. So he becomes aggressive to the other dog or to the owner. And so he wants to know how can he begin to combat this. He's read that to place the food behind him and show the dog that he's alpha. So he says agreed or what would work. So basically food aggression.
Well, yes. So the biggest thing is when you're dealing with that, it's not. Yeah, we have to understand that first. It's not just food aggression. What we're actually dealing with is a resource guarding issue. The dog feels the need to guard a life resource. Food is a life resource. So then it's also important to know how the level of intensity in which they see that. It's not just about this is my food, leave me alone. I want to be dominant and I want to control this. It's this is my food. This is how I live. If you're trying to take it away from me, that must mean that you don't want me to live and you're trying to kill me. You know, I know it seems extreme, but when we think about it that way, it makes us understand where they're coming from, and whatever that level of aggression or intensity is, it makes it a little bit more understandable. I always think the first and foremost thing is you got to have a really solid out command, because when you're dealing with a dog that has that resource guarding issue, it's not something as easy as a walk. You know, a walk, I mean, you can put a prong collar dog and within minutes have that dog walking perfectly on leash. Resource guarding is more of a psychological issue, which means rehabbing that, it's just going to take time. First and foremost is you got to allow that to take time. But if you work to get that really solid out command, you're going to be able to handle that so much better than you're already doing. I don't necessarily think putting the food bowl behind him, I mean, I've never tried that approach. I've never really heard that. I don't necessarily think that would really help you a whole lot in that, in regards to that. I think that if the dog is resource guarding and he's aggressive towards the food, it's all about handling it in a very safe way. My general go-to for a dog like that is I'll put the food bowl down and I'll have them on a leash that's back tied somewhere, and I'll make sure that no matter what, the dog can't get to me, and I'll put the food bowl down and I'll take something like the end of a broomstick and I'll stick it in the food bowl just because I want to see how intense it is. If that sets them off, it gives you something to work with. I know that, gosh, the way that I generally handle resource guarding, I think is honestly a little dangerous, and I don't really, you know, tell any just average person to do that, because there's a lot of little nuances you got to pick up on, and if you're dealing with some heavy stuff, certainly consult somebody in your area, you know, that can help you with that, because you really need some trained eyes on that, because it's dangerous. You're dealing with something that's dangerous. But I think in terms of handling it, you know, for right now and what you can do to help with what you have, do whatever it keeps you the most 100% safe. Safety is the biggest goal. So whether that's back tying him to like a doorknob and you put the food bowl down, and then you can take, you know, the back of a broomstick, or maybe you got a hockey stick and just pull the bowl away like that and slide it in. Maybe it's putting him, I've done this with some dogs that have food aggression, I don't feel like dealing with it. I'll put them in the crate and drop the food bowl in there, and then I'll actually let them out of the crate, then go grab the food bowl to take them out. But in terms of rehabbing that, there's a lot of other extra steps, and I would highly recommend consulting a professional for it. What about you, Jeremy? Do you have any? You might have some better advice than I do at that point.
Yeah. So first of all, on how to approach this, Jim, you want to make sure you know why the dog is doing what it's doing, that's displaying the behavior. Either it feels like he's entitled and he can just get away with it, or he feels like he has to do it because he fears, like kind of what Josh was explaining. You definitely do, if he's getting aggressive with you, I would really recommend getting a professional to really diagnose what's going on there, just so you can get the right approach. But for now, if you've got 2 crates or separate rooms that you can feed your dogs in, go ahead and do that. Don't press the issue of I have to fix this, because it might just make things worse. So until you can get some real professional help, we can't really tell you exactly what to do, because, you know, yes, dogs are dogs, but there's little things that are different about them, and there's so many different approaches to those aggressive behaviors. So definitely feed them separate, and don't try to reach in the bowl or anything after they've already divulged themselves in eating. Definitely just leave them alone, let them eat, um, and wait for a professional, if it's necessary, to go ahead and address that issue. But feed them separate for now.
Yeah, and the other
Okay.
thing I was going to say too, Jim, by the way, guys, I realized I just setting. I've got it fixed so I can see all your questions now. Um, if you want to elaborate, I know that that's kind of vague, so Jeremy, I don't have a lot to pull with, but if you want to, type in there again and elaborate a little bit more, we can certainly try to help you even more because, like Jeremy said, it might not be something that is as intense. It might be a little bit easier to solve. So.
hmm Awesome. All right. Let's see. Oh, so Amanda typed in that they already took Charlie to the vet, and they said that it was behavioral. Okay, so Amanda, you're gonna have to then just watch him every time he's outside. Um, I would say if you just watch him for the next 10 times you let him outside and you correct it. If the level that's not working doesn't work, or the level that you're working with doesn't work, then you're going to have to up the level by 5 and find that level that really, um, corrects him the way that it should be corrected. Okay. Josh, did you have any questions on via email or anything like that?
Um, yeah. Sorry, let me get readjusted on the couch here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the questions that I had is when you have a dog that is really reactive on the leash, how do you know what the trigger is? And that one that one to me is also a really tough question in terms of figuring out what the trigger is because each dog is different and every dog is going to kind of approach it differently. We're really lucky if you have a dog that shows really clear signals. Some of the first things that I look for is just if the dog has tenseness in their body, that's the first part of how reactive they're going to be. Ears go up, hackles go up, tail goes up. But sometimes that trigger can be really, really small. Sometimes it can be just an eye twitch. Sometimes it can be just the dog looking one way really quick. So it really depends on the level of that reactivity with your dog and really knowing your dog really well and where that reaction is going to come from in terms of finding the actual trigger. I always say that if it looks like your dog reacts out of nowhere, that's usually not the case. There's always a trigger in there, but it just means you got to be a little more specific and find it. Sometimes it's just a little bit of stress here in the forehead. So generally finding the trigger is really tough, but you've got to be able to look as closely as you can in order to find it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again with that too, the signs or the triggers. You're really going to have to learn your dog. There's so many different triggers for so many different dogs. And what makes your dog uncomfortable? Um, so just observe the environment when you're taking them on a walk, and like Josh said, watch his ears, watch his eyes, and watch his overall body language, because the ears are a pretty good sign of how your dog's feeling. Um, so if they're cautious about something, the ears are going to be up and their eyes are going to be on whatever they're cautious about. And at that moment, if it is consistent with what your dog's looking at, then that's how you can kind of find out that that's the trigger. So it's all about reading your dog and getting to know what makes him uncomfortable and what makes him not so comfortable, and then being proactive to get him to feel better about whatever he is cautious about or not feeling so well about. So,
Jim over there elaborated just a little bit and basically says
okay.
he says it's just starting. It's just started relatively recently, so that's a really good sign. If it's really recent, that means it's still a really sort of a new thing. And they're both fed in the laundry room. Basically, it's snarling, showing teeth, and raised hair and growling. Honestly,
Mm.
I mean, and you tell us, Jim, what you've tried in terms of correcting that, but usually whenever I see stuff that's new that's kind of coming up, and it seems like a similar thing, I don't necessarily put a lot of weight in the beginning, and I kind of troubleshoot a little bit to see what do I get in terms of, if it just seems like it's just some snarling and showing teeth with the raised hair and growling. I don't know. It could be a really simple correction. One really clear correction could neutralize that. And if it doesn't, and then if it ignites it, or if it gets worse, fewer than comfortable, then that shows us that maybe it's a little bit bigger of a little bit of a bigger issue. Um, but I think in terms of correcting that, hopefully if they're both fed in the laundry room, if they're not separated, find a way to separate them. Again, finding that 100% that way to have that safety, and do what's comfortable for you for correcting. What I would probably do if I were in your shoes is I put a prong collar on the dog, and then have a leash that I held onto, and then put the food bowl down. And if I saw some growling, give a really firm pop upwards to let them know that wasn't okay. And really, more just the first one is just to see, like, did he respond to it really well, or did he get even more uncomfortable, or did he become, a little frustrated with me? I think that's kind of where I would start, and then we kind of see where it goes from there. But hopefully, in your case, one of those, and then he's done. Some dogs are that way.
Yeah, so I see, and also, Jim, if you don't mind telling us how old your dogs are, usually is a pretty important factor. So if you don't mind letting us know how old he is. So I see we have a couple of viewers as well. If you guys don't know and you're new to the show, this is Think Dog, where you can ask questions and we'll answer it. And then the questionnaire, you can type your questions on the right, and then we see them and we'll answer them as you guys type your questions. So if you haven't been able to ask some questions, go right ahead, because we'll answer all of them. And to elaborate on what Josh was saying as well, if it's just relatively new, like Josh said, then it could be something that can be that can diminish pretty quickly as well. But let's not forget this too, Jim, that aggression in any sense is maybe lack of boundaries and limitations as a whole when it comes to their everyday activities too. So, okay, so he's 2 years old and she's 1 year old. Okay, and could you tell us about how long you've had both of them? Because that's pretty important as well. But I'll elaborate what I was saying before. It's pretty important to kind of establish that role, that leadership role during the walk, letting your dogs out, and all those other things, which then will show up. You'll have an easier time dealing with the food aggression if you're that you're established your leadership in those other aspects of the dog's existence. So again, aggression is just a symptom of something else that's or a lack of rules and boundaries in other areas. Because if they have to listen in other areas, they'll be more than likely to listen in areas where it really counts.
And while you're doing that, Jim, I actually had another question I thought we could bring up now. Jeremy.
Okay.
I made a post earlier on Facebook about one of the dogs we have in our board and train right now is her name is Zoe, and she's a dog that came to me with basically the daycare she was at said she can be with the other dogs, but you've got to be really on guard and you have to highly supervise her in order for her to be okay with other dogs, because essentially she plays really rough and that rough play could turn south really quick. And basically, I had said when you give them guidance, and you become more proactive in your dog's life, this starts to go away. And one of our questions was, I have a follower who their dog has become more aggressive in the last year and barks at everything, even dogs on TV, and asking what are the steps to make your dog feel a little more comfortable with you, and not feel the need. And I always say, and this also, Jim, this kind of goes back to your situation as well. It's less about who your dog barks at, and it's less about how your dog reacts around other dogs and what choices they make, and it's more about why are they making those choices. Because if we're operating under this mentality that dogs live in this life or death survivalist sort of world, all the choices they make are going to be related to their success rate of living through a situation. And if your dog is barking a lot, dogs on TV, on leash, in the yard, if they're really aggressive, what needs to change isn't so much the dog as much as it is they need to understand that we are their guardians and that we will help them through whatever situation they feel stressed out about. That moment when you feel like someone's about to steal your food or you feel like you're in danger of not being able to eat, don't act on your own accord. Look to me for that guidance instead. That's where that starts, Jim, in terms of interrupting, or using that prong collar to kind of correct at first when you're kind of feeling that out. It's about communicating to the dog that, A, you growling and snarling, that choice is wrong. You can't ever make that choice. That's not okay. But also showing your dog guidance. Is he eating it really fast? Does he scarf it down? If that's the case, it's less about correcting him every time and trying to show him, I want to show you how to eat this really slow. One of the things that I do to kind of teach a dog to eat slow is we take the food bowl, we bring it down, and the second they take their head after it, we bring it back up. We bring it down and bring it back up. What we're doing is we're going all the way down the food bowl so it can touch the ground, and they look to us or just look somewhere else, not directly at the food bowl. When they can, then we say, okay, they start to eat. We give the out command. This is what I said before. You need to have a really solid out command. And if they don't, you have the leash, and you can use the leash to kind of guide them out of that to give them a more structured way to eat. Because what your dog needs if he's being aggressive like that is he needs to be he just needs to understand that you're there to help him, not hurt him. And I saw you said that you rescued him at 6 months, and she's 8 weeks. So that's a whole nother aspect you have, because you got a brand new puppy coming in that he hasn't had to deal with before, and that's already going to make him start to question where the boundaries are. Right now, I mean, you got 2 dogs in the house and they're brand new. Right now, what you're experiencing is these dogs are trying to figure out what the rules and boundaries are of each other. And this is where you need to step in and say, no, you guys don't decide anything. I'll tell you what the rules and boundaries are. When you sit down to eat, you eat separately. If you feel uncomfortable with it, tough. Nothing is going to happen because I'm here to make sure that puppy doesn't come after your food. I will not allow that. And I'm also here to make sure that you are not going to go after her and her food. I hope that makes sense. Jeremy, do you want to elaborate on that as well?
No, I mean, yeah, I think pretty much what you said fits the mold here. If you've had them both for over a year, then he's probably getting older, and if it's the male, is it the male that's younger? Had him a year and a half, and her 1 year. Rescued him at 6 and her at 8 weeks. Oh, okay. No, not necessarily. But anyway, just like Josh was saying, and I was saying a little earlier, don't force the issue. I was I was reading on another thread. We were talking dog training, and I think too many do force the issue of making sure their dogs aren't food aggressive. If your dog, like Josh was saying, if your dog is eating really fast, it may be a sign that he just needs to learn how to slow his food down. I have a dog that eats very, very fast, and I think Josh does too. Does Linus a food problem? He just ate like it was his last meal.
He did. He doesn't anymore, but he did. He did it for a long time there.
hmm Yeah. So, you know, what I really want to stress to you, basically is, you know, stay safe, and they should not be growling at each other and or anybody else when in the presence of food. But my rule of thumb is for dogs that are food aggressive, um, I'll put the food down. I'll let them eat it, and I always separate my dogs when they eat, just because I don't want to stress that issue. It just shouldn't be an issue. When I think of it as, if I'm eating my food and someone comes up and takes my food, I'm gonna be pretty mad about it. So I don't force the issue. Although dogs should not be growling at anybody, but I'll give them their own space to eat. Um, just as long as I make them, if they wait for their food, then I'm pretty okay with it. I'm not gonna stick my hand back into the food bowl after they're already starting to eat. I just don't do that. Unless I'm working with a dog who really, really has a big problem. So, you know, definitely just if your dogs are okay eating separate, go ahead and feed them separate and don't bother them while they eat. Um, but if it gets to the point where they're really exuding some really bad behavior, starting to bite, or starting to look like they're going to bite humans, or if they get into a fight, then, like we said earlier, definitely consult a professional. Okay? But thanks for your questions. We appreciate it. Um, I got another question from Facebook. Um, Katie had asked me, what's the best way to keep her dog from barking? It seems like she said that it seems like walking to the door. Um, we we can't get him to stop barking. Even he'll bark. He'll even bark while he's in place. And so what I had mentioned was I told them they might have to go back to um, putting the prong on and the leash on, and really showing the dog's name is Brody. Really showing Brody that whatever comes through that door or whatever's acting, because he also barks at everything going outside of the window. So what you have to do is show Brody, help him feel better about all of those things, because he's just a real nervous dog, it sounds like. So with that place command, it's definitely going to help. I also use the term quiet to correct my dogs verbally when they're barking. But it could be a long road, especially if Brody is super nervous. How he is, it could be a long road. But you have to stick with it, because you do have to change how he feels about people coming in, people knocking on the door, dogs and whatnot walking past the window. Actually, he shouldn't be. You know, I wouldn't get in, I wouldn't let Brody get into the habit of looking outside the window. Um, so definitely give him some more place time, because what you're doing when you put him in place is you're taking control of the situation, and you're saying, no matter how you feel about what's making you nervous, you have a job to do, and your job is to stay in place. And in doing so, over time, it really helps your dog feel better about all the stuff he's nervous about. So you can even practice too. One of the things that we do is we practice knocking on the door and or simulating a FedEx guy or a UPS guy or the mail guy, or just guests coming in, and we'll kind of act like recreate the scenario, and then really get some good training in doing so, showing Brody that all of that stuff, in fact, is not that big of a deal. You don't have to get up and try and bite or just bark your head off. So that's one of the things that we do to help dogs. But overall, you do have to help Brody feel better about all those things that trigger him, make him feel nervous. And giving him a job to do generally helps all that stuff melt away. What are your thoughts, Josh?
Oh, agree. You said everything that I would say because you're a smart guy.
Okay. All right. Okay, so it seems like we've gotten a lot more viewers now. If you guys want to go ahead and ask a question, if you want, or if you're just here to listen, we can continue to talk. We got about 10 minutes left. We'll go a little bit longer because we started a little late for you guys. Sorry for that. So go ahead and ask some
Screwed
questions
it
if you
up.
got some. What?
I said, Jeremy, you screwed it up.
No, you screwed it up.
Huh? Well,
Hey, if we would have
I'll
worked out
take the blame. Fine.
we work, we'll work out the kinks next time. So anyway, okay. There's not any questions posted right now, but I'll go ahead and talk about something that I think is pretty important as of late. Um, I recently feel really good about a dog that I had, Coleon.
Coleon, yeah. Tell me about that dog.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I feel good about him, man. I just left his place last weekend. Alyssa and I went over there, and man, I was so impressed, man. They have been doing great work. This dog came
Interrupt
to
you,
me.
Jeremy, because this is one of the things that I think is so impressive, and I'm so glad you have that with them. The only reason why dog training works and why Jeremy and I's jobs work is because the people at home work just as hard as we do. And it sounds like that's what they did. And that is the most awesome experience when you go to see how they're doing and you're impressed. I love that. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, they had told me they had guests over for Thanksgiving for the first time, and for the first time they didn't have to muzzle their dog in fear of him attacking the guests. So, it's a really big accomplishment. This dog, just so everyone knows, this dog came in. He was very human aggressive. I mean, they did a good job of managing it, so he didn't actually bite someone, but he tried to bite several people. If you go to my YouTube page, you can see the video of him. His name is Coleon, and he was also very, very crate aggressive. Um, you know, I don't know. I can't thank these people enough. We went over there, and I was actually expecting to be working on some things, but they were just like, the only thing we really have to work on is the doorbell thing, and I'm like, really? That's awesome. But they said, it was a complete turnaround. But the key was, like Josh said, is the work that they put in, and they stayed disciplined with the homework that we gave them. But ultimately, for Coleon, because he was aggressive, because he was fearful, the key was to show Coleon that what came through that door, or whatever was confronting him, was not going to bring him harm. And he was a big dog, a big scary looking dog. And so the challenge was to really help Coleon feel at ease with guests coming over, and all the chaos from Thanksgiving and family or whatever, because he would charge the door normally before he came to training with us. But it just goes to show, like Josh said, this is why we do what we do, because that dog, there's tons of dogs that act like that are being put down every day. And so if we can, help people realize what they really just need to do, and then they do it, the dog wins in the end. So I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. And you brought up a really good point that it's really, really hard for me to kind of take in how many dogs are either given up or put down over things that are totally workable issues that you can really help a dog through. And I'd say that Jeremy and I both probably, at least 50% of our clients, if not more, come to us saying that, we've already been to a lot of other trainers and nothing worked. Yeah, we'll see if you work, but if you don't, then we're either giving the dog up or taking him to the vet and getting him put down, or dropping him off at the dog pound or something. And this is kind of like, our way of always letting you guys know that There is solutions out there. The mass majority of people out there may struggle with the answer in some way, but I know that Jeremy and I and like in our field of other trainers that operate in a very similar way that we do and have the same sort of success rate we do, there are others out there that say, well, I've met one or two dogs where I personally felt they need to be put down. I know I've never met a dog that I thought that. I know Jeremy has never met a dog that he thought that was necessary. But even the trainers out there that say that a dog being put down is necessary, that's like the one dog out of the 800 dogs I've worked with or the 1,000 dogs I've worked with I thought need to be put down. Just to kind of put it into perspective, because a lot of the issues and a lot of behaviors you might see might seem extremely intense, but might be a lot more workable than it may seem on the surface. So there's hope out there. We're here for you, and there's always hope, and that you can find that solution that you need.
Yes, indeed.
One thing that I was gonna, that I wanted to bring up as well, Jeremy, and this is something that I feel like I kind of feel like I've been talking about this a lot, like just the past month, but it's the definition of affection. Is it good or is it bad? And affection's really, really good. It's a wonderful thing to give to your dog, but it can certainly cause some bad things if you use it the wrong way. And I prefer to look at it in terms of the relationship. So I always say, so when two dogs meet each other for the first time, it's extremely rare that they immediately become friends and they start running around and have a great time. That certainly does happen, but it's extremely rare. The common case is they're a little edgy around each other. There's some sniffing there. It looks like they're kind of feeling each other out, and then 2 weeks later, a month later, 2 months later, then you start saying, "Oh man, they're best friends." I didn't even think they would do this because they're really edgy at first. Dogs, when they first meet each other, put in a lot of rules and boundaries. When those rules and boundaries are clear between each other, then they start to have affection. Then they start to develop a relationship with each other. We as humans are the opposite. When you meet somebody new, whether it's a friendship, there's that whole, I don't know, does this person like me? If I say that, are they going to think I'm weird? Or if I go and call this person up after I just met them last night, are they going to think that's really strange, or is that too forward? There's all of these things you feel out, so there's not a lot of rules and boundaries, but then after you meet somebody, and let's say this is a significant other, and you guys have been together for a few months, and you're in the habit of calling each other, every day, and then let's say it goes 3 or 4 days and you haven't heard from your significant other. Well, that's a problem, and you're going to tell them, you can't not call me for 3 or 4 days. That's a rule that you just put into your relationship that didn't exist before. So the more that we invest as humans in relationships, we start to enforce those rules and boundaries later. And because we do this as people, we naturally do that with our dogs. And that's why so many people always have issues with their dogs, because they approach it the same as a human. They first give complete freedom. This is your house. Go smell around. Go do what you want. This is your yard. I want you to feel this out like I would feel out in a new situation, so that you like it. And then at the same time, you're giving lots of affection to ensure that I'm good. I'm not a bad person. I only want to do good things for you. And then what that creates is confusion with the dog, because they feel like you should be giving them a lot more rules and boundaries so they know what's expected of them. So in terms of affection, it is not bad. It's really good. And I think Jeremy probably says this too, but to almost every single client that comes to me, no matter what the program, one of the first things I tell them is, you got to take your affection from here and you got to bring it like way down to here. Not because it's bad, but because we just have to rework this relationship. Once they understand all these rules and boundaries, then that affection and all that crazy, goofy stuff can start coming back up. But they have to earn that. They don't just get that for being alive.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Josh. I always tell people, the best way to see if the relationship is kind of worth it is to step back and look at it. So create space, and that's what we tell people to do with their dogs. Sometimes they're so caught up in the affection thing as a means to solve something, but in order to really create independence and security from your dog, you definitely have to take a step back and create space. It's just like if once a child's getting sent off to college, or a bird that has to learn how to fly. You know, sometimes we do have to take that extra step away in order to benefit them in the long run, because they have to deal with those certain fears and anxieties on their own instead of having someone to lean on all the time. So, you know, one of the things that's pretty tough, and we've talked about this before, but you know, an insecure dog should not be pet. An insecure dog certainly should not be in the bed, because then what you're doing is just facilitating that feeling of insecurity. And so by creating that space, they have to deal with whatever makes them feel insecure, and then through time they'll develop better feelings about those insecurities. So, but you know, to create that, they definitely have to be kind of you know, separated, and less affection, because affection just enables in the right circumstance, in the wrong circumstance. So, good point, Josh. That's a good point, man. So
Boom.
anyway, it is 8:55. We're going to go ahead and jump off. I appreciate all of the viewers that we had. Please feel free to. We'll have another one in 2 weeks. Please feel free to attend that one. If we didn't get to your question, I apologize. I'm sure if you post on either mine or Josh's Facebook, we will answer that, no doubt. But thank you guys for watching. Again, this was Think Dog, our live Q&A video podcast. So please be sure to attend next time.
Yeah, and our next episode is on December 23rd, so we're gonna make it a fun holiday episode.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see y'all next time.
See you later.